Hi Ranjan. So it's been a few years since I have known you. I think 2019 February I met you for the first time at Lalit Kala. Now the interesting thing is I remember that I had gone to that show for it was a two-man show if I remember correctly, and I had gone because I had known.
No, it was
that was the second show. That was the second show, right? I first met you then when you had the two-man show at Lalit Kala, and subsequently when we met for your solo show is around the time when I was doing an annual festival called I Am, and you were kind enough not just to be a part of that festival, but you exhibited your works there. And there has been a train of, we have exchanged not just conversations, but a lot of written word as well. And, creating art more has been a part of that, where we've tried to bring the focus of art discourse back to the public. This theme of within without, the show here at LTC is also called Within Without, but it has a tagline to it. Your last year's show at the Visual Art Gallery was also with the same title. And if I remember correctly, when you had the show at I Am at the Arpana Fine Art Gallery, your show, although it was titled differently, those...
Staying Alive.
Staying Alive, yeah. And... but it was all about those people who are there but are not there.
Yes.
So this sort of missing is always a continuous component of your art. How do you think that this continuation of the title is related to this search that you have for the missing people or the missingness even when we exist and are present?
Yeah. So right from when I started painting, it's been in a way, as you said, there's been a continuity. My first earlier shows were about people living the streets, the marginalized people in slums, rickshaw pullers, sometimes sleeping on their vehicles, and so on. But as I went on, so these were just observations when I was kind of walking the streets and those kind of things. Then I started thinking, well, I have not lived that kind of life, but how would it be to experience their lives? So I tried to put myself in their shoes. So now from observation, it became an imagined kind of story. Because in some cases one would tend to talk, sometimes you're sitting in a rickshaw, you ask where he comes from, and
right.
Many of them are migrants and those kind of things. So that's why in some cases there were migrants also. So that's why when I did the show immediately during COVID, so when I was working, so essentially we were talking about migrants and things like that. So the last one, why I thought of Within Without is, okay, these are imagined stories. Now there is a societal dynamics which is play,
right.
But because of that impact, it also impacts them mentally. So there is sometimes a mental trauma So then it's like both within and without that way as well.
Right.
And without is, so if you say, yes, they are there, but they have no belongingness, and they are, in a sense, invisible. So continuing with this, so this particular thing has a subtitle, as you said, we said,
Right.
Tales of Evanescence, and this is only focused on missing people. But in a way, I see continuation because whatever my research indicated,
Right.
most of the people whom we see and talk about are missing, or we see read them about ads.
Right.
They belong to the lowest strata of society,
Right.
and they're the marginalized, they're the migrants, who in a way are kind of invisibilized.
Right.
They're there and yet not there. So yes, there is a continuity, but this particular show is a very special focus on missing people.
So very interesting thing happened yesterday. So for the opening, while right at the start where the opening had not yet happened, and somebody approached me and asked me that these people whose faces have been put there, so do these people exist or are they from imagination? So I said even if they exist between the artist and his research. So they could be, but these are not necessarily those known faces.
Yeah.
And but this is about giving identity to those, again, like you said, who are invisibilized. So it was an interesting, and the response of the individual was that I kind of see things differently now, because I see them as symbols, or symbolic of a complete clan of people who disappear.
Yeah.
For various reasons. Like you have also explored so many various research parameters. So there are, like you just spoke about the advertisements that come in newspapers. So the advertisements are also about missing people, and then there are also about found bodies or found people who are not able to claim for themselves. So they, even when found, they still remain missing.
Yeah.
How did you really work around this research? How did you plan this research?
So basically, as you said, it starts with these classified ads. In fact, I was looking at the morning papers today.
Right.
And, so that's why I brought this. So look at half page of all missing people.
Right.
And this is in today's Hindustan Times.
Right.
Now, generally, most of us would tend to gloss over these ads.
Yeah.
So nobody would actually pay attention to these. And I do not know what benefit this brings and how we can search for missing, wanted, kidnapped. So these are kind
identification.
of appeal for identification.
Right.
So these are people with no identity, and I think as far as the authorities are concerned, they've released the ad. Maybe their file is closed now because they've done their job. But so they probably will never get found. So then that is what got intrigued me.
Right.
I hadn't thought. So about 2-3 years ago, I started just taking clippings of that and just making a file and just kept on just to see what is going to happen.
Sort of a scrapbook.
Yeah, it became like a scrapbook.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, now who are these people? No, I cannot meet them. So yes, when you said yes, are these? In some cases, I may have looked at a picture and tried to do a portrait, but very often some of these photographs are such that you can barely make out what the features are.
Right.
So then you use your imagination, and also if there is actually a person living, you don't want to really have a portrait up.
Correct.
So many cases these are the imaginary tales, but there are also tales, if you search the net, about disappearances. Now, what I found is, according to official data, not only in India, throughout the world, like different countries have more official statistics. 60% of the people who go missing are young girls and women.
And this is across the board, across the globe?
Across the world.
Okay.
And in India particularly.
Right.
And there are some instances of mental health traumas where people go missing. They'll walk out.
Yeah.
And sometimes very young boys and young children, babies, they get picked up and go missing.
Right.
So then I try to find out who are these people, what happens, why do they get picked up. So some young women go missing, they're married women,
Right.
going to domestic violence.
Okay.
Some young girls and women, they picked up very young. So like you were talking about that NGO in Nepal,
Right,
at a very young age, and they get
Trafficked.
trafficked and pushed into the sex trade. Now, in some cases, there are young boys, somebody was telling me,
Yeah.
who also get pushed into
Sex trade.
sex trafficking. But there are also men, boys and women who get picked up for organs, for organ trafficking.
Right.
So their organs are removed and left to, so many of them are like dead on the streets.
Right.
There is no statistic to say, has anybody actually checked where the organs they are not?
Yeah.
Or the bodies are sometimes so badly decomposed, some of the photographs, you cannot even make out there's a human being, it's like a skeleton remains.
I think that individual, I mean, like you're talking about on the street, is already already incomplete.
Yeah.
So for somebody to do a forensic check on that, you know, a pathological check
And who's
it's in nobody's interest, I think.
And then there were stories of young babies being picked up. So this woodcut engraving behind of a young baby being picked up from railway stations, while the mother is sleeping, and stolen, and then given away and sold for a price to another person, another parent who's looking for children and don't have a baby of their own.
So, I mean, in case of babies, you would probably think, you know, sex trade is one thing.
Yeah.
Then again, they are, sold to people who are childless.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling for begging as well, you know, they could
Yes,
be pushed
of course.
into such kind
Absolutely.
So one aspect is the reason why different people go missing. And then subsequent to that is what happens to them, where do they end up?
Yeah.
Whatever might be the intermediary story, but wherever they end up. So they could be at a brothel, they could be on the streets, they could be selling, they could be working. I think a lot of bonded labor across the world again.
Yes.
So which has been the slaves, right? I mean, and from India as well, many of them, you know, and from Africa, they have been traded across.
Yes.
And it still exists in parts and parcels. I remember that show of yours, I think it was called Where Do They Belong?
Yes.
Right, I think, and we had in that work when you had captured those rickshawalas, you know, kind of sleeping on their own rickshaws at times or on the streets. There is an intimate space that they occupy in complete denial of sorts of what surrounds them, and the denial of whatever that surrounds them. So we, as people of the cities, you know, migrants, I think, are who form a city more than anything else. I mean, across the world, major metropolitan cities, it's always the migrants who bring in and change the city also. And there's an underlying, undercurrent of people who exist, be it on the streets or on the pavements and working there and doing a lot of menial jobs. But there are other reasons why people go missing as well, like you spoke about mental health. I think it could be related to dementia, but it could also be related to other factors which can be at any age.
Yeah. So one you talked about, you know, slaves and all that.
Right.
Now this work, for example, it's about cyber fraud and cyber crime, where people are enticed to go outside the country sometimes, and then they get entrapped, and they're compelled or sometimes induced to commit cyber fraud, you know, or so that's why. So then there's other instances where there are voluntary disappearances, where say there is a couple where the families are not accepting their relationship, so they choose to run away. Now, I mean, you can call it a positive thing, but that is because of societal pressure. They feel that they should just disappear. Now, so it is in search of a better for greater happiness. So it's not there is another external compulsion. The compulsion is society.
But they do go missing from the families.
Yeah, they go missing. Yeah. And they sometimes maybe changing their identities. You know, they left their village probably in Bihar or UP or Rajasthan. They come here.
Right.
And they're trying to eke out a living. They have no identity actually. Where do they? So the whole idea is where do they belong? They themselves probably don't know, where do they belong.
I think the answers don't exist.
They left their identities behind. So in fact, I did a thing about migrants from South American countries into North America, and I have got symbols of their totems and symbols, which are kind of floating in the ocean, because they're leaving their identities. They're going to maybe adorn it. Sometimes, in many cases, they change their passports, they change their names. So officially, they become different citizens.
Right.
So it's such a wild, huge topic. I can spend the rest of my.
No, I think it's good the fact that your exhibition does not focus on only one part.
Yes.
So what you've also tried to do is look at why people went missing, where did they land up, and looking at the not just Indian context. So you have people from Kashmir, you have people from Bihar, you have people from different states of India, but you also have Sudan, you have South Americans shifting. So the reasons could be different, like you said. They could be for a better life, why they go missing. But there's many a times when they're picked up without their
knowledge.
Yes. I mean, like children to be picked up, they have absolutely no understanding of what is happening.
In some cases in India, children are sold also.
Yeah.
And then they show them as missing. Because when they're sold, so families said, well, bhag gaya. You don't know whether actually bhag gaya kya hua, or they were sold for a price. So especially young girls. I mean, these are the realities.
So two things come to my mind. Especially because. And I perceive and expect that it might be there in people who visit the show also. One was actually voiced to me. Why is it that the exhibition is so, it is a little depressing. I don't think it's depressing. I think it's more about facts. It's more about being forced to look into the mirror and the reality that exists. So it's a way of, no longer glossing over things and having to look at them. I think that's the first challenge. Second is, I think you partially spoke about that also, is when you say that you have not lived that life, but you put yourself in those shoes. So it's about, and in woke culture, there's a lot about that. What is being said should be said by the people who experience it personally. But then we've discussed that.
Discussed that. And you see, as you know, I've written novels, I've written short stories. And now if you write a short story, you will have just because will I have all characters who are only men, I will not have a woman as a character. Now how do I have to imagine myself in the shoes of a woman. Now I'll have characters from different states. So if I can do it in fiction, I mean, why do people think that I should not be doing it in visual art? And so the way I look at, whether it's literature or art, at the end of the day, it's about imagination.
Yeah, I think it's about imagination, but it's also about research. So even for fiction, you have research. So why can you not research on existing?
So from a novel, I spent 5 years researching. So here also, before I actually started talking, I did a fair amount of research. I also met people who had lived in those areas to understand, like Kashmir or Manipur, to understand what are the causes and what are the reasons. And then from whatever I could draw inspiration from, then I used my imagination, and that to me is what creativity is about. And that's why I say these are imaginary tales, but based on real events in many cases.
So what also is different about this show is, so till date I've seen more of your paintings in oil and acrylic, although we have seen your performance as well, because that's something that you used to do. But this exhibition, you have really gone out of your way to come up with new mediums. You've gone for woodcuts and installations and sculptures. Why this necessity? Did you feel that there was a necessity especially for this exhibition, or did you want to explore otherwise? What was the...
Yeah, well, you see, one reason was there are multiple causes why people go missing. So if there are multiple causes, I thought there should be multiple mediums to express it. And as I was thinking about it, I would think about an idea which I thought would be best expressed as a sculpture like this, or like a 3D form. But here also, I try to camouflage, which very difficult, becomes difficult in a 2D, or even experiment with woodcut. And why woodcut or some of these works? Because I was looking at various ways. How do you show and not show? So invisibilize. So woodcut is that you're showing very little. So you're just playing with just two lines. So in which case the subject will automatically disappear. You don't even have to show them. So it makes it easier to depict. So that's why I was looking for various modes of expression.
So like in terms of woodcut, I personally also feel that it's a very tedious process.
Yes.
There's a physical labor involved in that. And I think that removal is also a sense of the wood losing something. So that also goes missing.
Yeah. So
some ways.
So you are right. So there is a symbolism attached to showing a woodcut and showing. So for example, there's a work in another room. So I also use paper mache, and I'm taking out things. So what we are saying is they are kind of removed from society. So the idea of removing wood, yes, exactly. You are right, absolutely. So completely. I was not thinking like that, but
as an artist, I don't see your art as decorative. While a lot of contemporary art, although you've actually written articles for Artamore on contemporary art and what is contemporary art. Maybe we should start with that first. What do you think is contemporary art?
Well, let's start with modern art, and to what extent modern art and contemporary art, and where does modern art? Where does modern art culminate, and what do we call contemporary art? So I think it's a misnomer to say whatever, if there is an artist who's living today, that is the easiest dictionary definition. He's a contemporary artist. But the way I feel is, if there is a contemporary artist who's just copying Gond art, which is a folk art, I'm not sure in the folk art tradition, unless he's doing some innovation, you can really call it belonging to the contemporary art genre of contemporary art. So the way I look at, modern art, came to us because of the Second World War, and there was a lot of there was destruction, and so you got abstraction, and there was a kind of existential element, and people were searching for, and people started challenging notions of what is art. And we had Marcel Duchamp taking a urinal and putting it there. So that changed the complete complexity of modern art. But then modern art, the way I perceive it, it was about form, texture, color, and there was the advent of photography. So artists were looking for different mediums to express, and so you had Impressionism, and then you wanted feeling, so you had Expressionism, and you were breaking away from realism, and like I'm talking of Western art, so painting in churches and religious symbols, to painting landscapes and painting anything which they saw and observed. So there was a major departure. But as contemporary art progressed, you got genres like performance art. It became increasingly multidimensional. Modern art was not, so performance art is part of the contemporary art movement. Then you got, it became multidimensional, so you had poetry. So there were no barriers now. So there was film. So you can have a video as part of a visual art. So when you see a show, it doesn't. It's very difficult to say no. This only painting is. So in fact, increasingly, if you very often contemporary art shows, there will be very few actual oil paintings. I continue doing oil paintings, but. So that is a major departure. And then there were narratives. So modern art didn't talk about narratives and stories. And say the black art movement, for example. So you had Jane Marshall and Kara Walker and Basquiat, for example, who were trying to express. And they were trying to talk about their own problems, their own suffering. But this carried on, and then abstraction got minimalized because there was more content and figurative art came back.
Right.
So after abstraction.
So I think right now I agree that it's not that anything is going away anywhere, but there seems to be
A slight
more
shift.
people re-looking at the figurative part of it.
And at least in America, the major turning point was 2020 with the murder of George Floyd by the white policeman.
Right.
Now that got people thinking, and that at least in America and then parts of Europe, people started addressing socio-political issues, and so the contemporary art, particularly in the last 5 years, that what I have been following,
Right.
has. I'm not saying all of contemporary art is about that. Much of contemporary art is also about innovation, using new materials.
Right. Right.
Installations was not part of modern art, but installations like Marshall Dupin, you can say it was an installation.
It was an installation.
But nobody talked about it like that then. Yeah. But now installation is very much part of like what you do.
Correct.
Is very much part of contemporary art.
Right.
So many of the artists whom you say decorative art, they're doing it. I have no problems with that. They're doing it for a living because that is what many galleries want, many interior designers want, and that is what sells.
Right.
But would I call that contemporary art just because they're doing it today? I would not want to bracket it as contemporary art.
So if I understand correctly, so one part is the sort of mediums that are being used, and the diversity of expressions, be it performance or poetry, and other fields also becoming a part of a larger genre, or they can be collaborative arts also.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you have one artist and the other artist collaborating. I mean, food is also one, and then film is also
there
one.
are collectives where you don't even know
who is the individual who does that.
There are 5 artists working together,
Right.
And it's a group effort, So
But the output is one.
Yeah, the output is one. It's like doing a film or doing a theater. Yes, you may have.
And the second is the context that they bring in. I mean, what are they responding to?
Yeah.
And I think in most of, per se, decorative art, it's not necessarily just that, but the classical expression of or reproduction of sorts, I think that stays rooted in what has existed and tries to stay as close as possible, while maybe incorporating certain things of the current times and in a way of trying to shift. So a lot of Gond art or Varli and all would shift from their original mediums to acrylic on canvas, and they could have the Chandrayaan and different things becoming as motifs and symbols there. But I still believe that they do not necessarily change their format. They stay rooted where they are. And I'm not sure if the contemporization is the right word. I don't think that there is anything wrong in anything not being contemporary.
No.
There's nothing wrong in that, absolutely.
See, the way I look at it, every artist, every writer, every filmmaker is completely free to do what they think they want to do.
Right.
Now, some people have compulsions about eking out a living.
Right.
Fair enough,
Right.
So some people think their understanding of art, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I have no quarrels with that. Saying it's only about beautification. So if it is about beautification, you just want to look, you want a picture which looks pretty.
Right.
It's fine. It's like there will be photographers who will take very dark pictures or full of horror, and there will be some photographers who will do beautiful landscapes.
Right.
I mean, both are fine in their own aspect. And when I talked about photography, so much of modern art was a response to photography. But now photography itself has become a fine art and very much accepted as a visual art medium.
I think fine art photography initially, I think, started to look at the abstraction of things. Started to look at forms and shapes and colors, shapes, shadows, and deliberately trying to take out photographs which are not easily recognizable, or they kind of delineate from what is the norm. But increasingly, I think, again, as everything progresses, fine art photography is also moving into a line which is incorporating both abstraction and figuration.
Yes.
So they are keeping the realism alive because I think photography has that, it captures the moment.
Yeah, and we see a lot more change with AI now coming in.
Right.
And even with photography, you can you have so many ways to create effects.
I don't think with our mobile phones nowadays, which is the main medium of taking photographs and sharing and spreading them around, I don't think we take anything in RAW.
No.
There is an AI already inbuilt in the in the operating system, and it changes.
And sometimes you do it deliberately. So the way I look at it, I mean, yes, we call each other artists, but everybody in their own way are artists. And I'm happy if people, exploit their creative juices. In fact, if you talk about creativity, research indicates that after the age of 5, children lose their creativity by 80%, 90%. So all children will draw, and you give them a crayon, they'll want to scribble on the walls. Yeah. But at a certain age, they stop doing it. And then you ask older people why you're not doing it. No, we are not.
But do you think that that's because of the societal upbringing that they see around themselves, or is it just a generic factor where they lose interest in what they were doing?
Yeah, because I think we are such a competitive environment,
right.
And the focus is about doing well in school, getting very high marks and high grades,
right.
And then once you take up a job, there is a competitive environment. Yeah. So I mean, very few people actually visit art exhibitions in the country.
I think that's the point where increasingly, I mean, it's always been there, but increasingly it has become very important to be successful, to be, peer in whatever you're doing. There is no possibility to be something, to just experience it. Yeah. And that pressure, I think, leads to a lot of people going missing. I mean, look at Kota, which is the factory for most of our engineering colleges and all, and there's so many deaths that happen. There's so many people who just lose out, and their nervous breakdowns and all. That missing is a different missing also, and they lose out and they miss out on their adolescence. While they're studying there, they lose out on what their lives should have been with their families, with their friends. I mean, that's also life, but it has a different tangential route that it takes.
So you see, talking about myself,
right?
As you know, I was doing a full-time job, and I chose publishing because it gave me a little more time over weekends.
Right.
But then, whether it was writing fiction initial years and then increasingly doing only painting,
right,
it was a kind of a creative outlet. So whatever stress there was in a 10 to 5 job, I could take it out.
Right.
So there was some way I could take out whatever was bottled up inside. So very often one tends to paint, an artist will paint to express themselves, or you write poetry, like you write poetry, to just express yourself. Now you're not doing it for commercial reasons. You may not even do it. So initially I would doodle or draw something, you put it, after some time you don't like it, you throw it in the dustbin, and a lot of what I did initially is not with me.
I think it's about privilege. I mean, but I don't think there should be guilt with regards to being privileged to be able to explore and create things without the specific reason to monetize it. But monetization is important because you spoke about it, that a lot of people do art primarily because they've got to eke out a living.
Yeah.
And then they start responding to whatever the market asks them to. But increasingly, a lot of collectors worldwide, their average age is becoming lower, which means a lot of younger people have started to get into collections, have started to collect art, and their focus is allowing more younger artists to explore and not do the run-of-the-mill thing just to survive.
Yeah.
But how do you see this curator, this collector market? How do you see that? What would be kind of an advice for them, or what do you think that they should look for, be it a young collector or a senior collector with experience?
The way I would look at it, I mean, if I don't collect, I don't have that kind of whatever I have money saving, I'm spending on my art.
Right.
But I mean, for a collector, the way I would look at it is, you are buying something as pure investment, like you'd invest in a stock market, for example.
Right.
And then you're hoping that what you buy will have a value 2x or 3x times, say 5 years, 10 years from now.
Right.
So the first thing you have to look at is any work of art. And of course, we talk about big names, whether it's Picasso or Van Gogh, or in India, Hussein. So is this work of art going to have a longevity?
Right.
Will this have value? Will this be sought after 5 years, 10 years from now? So does it have that kind of depth where people are going to look at it? Now, if you're going to buy art because there is somebody saying this is a good work of art, and it's particularly increasingly gallerists and interior designers are governing the art market
Right.
and influencing the buyers.
Right.
So then the collector has to think, search within that. Do you think this it look nice on my wall, but do you think 10 years people are going to say this is a great work of art? You know, so that is what I would say. I mean, so for a good work of art, the way I look at it, because you talked about decorative art,
Right.
is it nuanced? Does it have? Is it about emotion? Is it stirring you in some way? I mean,
Right.
even for somebody who's buying it,
Right.
I mean, you buy something because you like it.
Yeah.
There is something
The desire is there.
You are able to relate to in some day. Not because it's not just a pretty picture.
Right.
So if it is nuanced, if it is layered, if it is moving you some way, I'm not saying it doesn't necessarily have to have any kind of societal kind of thing, which like I'm focusing on. But whatever it is, there has to be something more than just beautification. And if you think that is it, then yes, that work of art, there is a good probability that work of art will have a longer life.
How do you think in terms of materials?
Yes.
Because when you speak about longevity of an artwork, so one is the concept and the execution part, but the mediums are also so important.
Yeah,
the tactility of an existing art piece, will it survive? I mean,
So you see, very often that is another problem now, and especially, and that I think is a challenge for say installation artists,
Right.
or artists, like who are doing in situ work.
Right.
Now, what is the value of that? Now you say like performance art, for example.
Correct.
Well, the value
Tangential.
is it's tangential, but maybe you're taking a photograph,
documentation.
and then that has archival value.
Right.
So I don't think there is much clarity on how do you monetize other forms of art. Now people are experimenting.
Right.
We are going through a major change, and I think the next 5 years with AI coming in, much more will happen, and which is a very good thing in terms of creativity. But in terms of whether artists will be able to survive doing that, so maybe they'll have to lead two lives. And that is where the challenge is. You see, sometimes what happens is you're doing something to earn a living, but then that cannot become your art. So
you should try and separate your art.
You're doing something to earn a living.
Correct.
But then if it is something for doing it for yourself, then there has to be something different.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will get confused.
I mean, from your own life, I mean, you went to IIT and decided not to complete that because
I completed it. I finished
I'm so
engineering.
sorry. I'm just saying
I struggled to finish it, but I did.
Yeah. No, but the point being that that struggle was because your expectations were different. What you wanted to do from it, what you expected, and then what happened there.
Well, I did because there were some classmates who sat for the exam. So they said, why didn't you sit for it? So I filled up the form. Now, unfortunately, I got in.
Right.
And then I had some other plans. Then everybody said, no. I mean, IIT. Who says no to IIT? So by this time I was second year, third year, I knew I was not wanting to do engineering. But then it was a question of starting from scratch or just completing graduation. The only thing I knew is I didn't want to be an engineer. What I wanted to be, I was not sure. So then I explored many things, as you know, before I actually settled into
publishing.
I think now, publishing was also just a 10 to 5 job to earn my living.
Correct.
I want to clarify that. It was not something which
was creative.
So that's why I continued writing, or I continued painting on the weekends. Okay. Yeah, it was a job which I could do. Like I did not feel
doable.
I did not feel it was a torture.
With that.
With engineering, it would have been torture.
When you curate other people's exhibitions, their dreams and aspirations should never go missing. So like even when we have done your, I was lucky enough to have curated your show as well. We used to discuss My first point is to understand why you are doing it, what do you want to say, and the objective should be, once the objective is decided and it is clear, you start working in reverse from that.
Yeah.
So I find myself as a curator, I find myself to be in a position to kind of guide the person that this is probably what you're trying to see, and I try to be a sounding board and a reflective mirror more than anything else. What would you want from a curator for yourself?
Well,
I know that Ina Di was a curator.
So Ipura was there, and she made multiple visits to my studio,
Right.
and then we would talk,
Right.
and then she encouraged me, for example, to do more woodcuts,
Right.
because she felt that
She could see the direction.
she felt that this is something which is coming out.
Right.
Now, I had not done many woodcuts earlier. I tried it, but I had never I had tried a lino cut at one point of time,
That's
but I had
right.
never exhibited any work.
Right.
As you know, I've never exhibited this. So she encouraged me. So that gave me the confidence to do, say, the larger works.
Yeah.
So I was working on. So sometimes.
So your dreams
sometimes,
could have wings. I mean, she was able to
sometimes
show
when
direction.
you're talking to somebody, gives you the confidence, and a good curator will put you in the right direction.
Without forcing you.
Because sometimes it becomes very difficult to be objective yourself,
your work.
or be able to assess your own work.
Right.
So what is good or bad, I mean, you've done it. So all children are alike. So you love all your babies, But then somebody will say, no, I think this is where you have to put all your money in.
But coming back to your own show, this show itself, what is your expectation of an average audience or a viewer who walks into the exhibition? What do you want them to experience? I mean, I would rather that they experience it on their own, but in your words or your expectations, what would you want them to experience?
Well, you see, as you know, the genesis was looking at ads and looking at stories, so these are imaginary stories. And generally, the feeling I get is these are the most neglected people, and nobody seems to be paying attention to anybody.
Right.
Now, I'm very clear when I am doing an art show in a space like this,
Right.
which is an elite space, let us accept that. I'm not doing it in a public space where ordinary people.
Correct.
So all the people I'm depicting here, they're never going to visit the show.
Right.
I'm not expecting that.
Right.
Am I going to change their lives? I don't think so. So I'm very clear that my art is not about. It's not going to change. So
It's more about question and
So it would be foolish on my part to think that I'm going to change society. But even if I can bring about some awareness and people start thinking even a modicum of thing, I would feel satisfied, that yes. And of course, they're also here to appreciate my art. If
the skills are important, the technique is important.
So if they've enjoyed it, because very often I visit, I have been visiting art exhibitions, and I used to ask my corporate friends or people who were with me in IIT, why don't you visit art exhibitions? They said, there's nothing, we don't understand. I said, well, what is there to understand? You go and attend a music concert, you very often go and see plays.
You don't know what's happening.
Are you familiar with all the ragas when you go and listen to music, but don't you enjoy it after some time? So that you remember that was the genesis of how we started Art Amor,
Exactly.
So
accessibility.
Yeah. So if they just say that they liked the work, they enjoyed it, it gave them a good feeling. I mean, feelings are, you see, sometimes things become heart-wrenching. Sometimes you enjoy just the colors, the aesthetics of it. I'll feel more than satisfied.
As an artist, to continue to practice, I think our works need to travel.
Yes.
And we need this confidence boost when somebody. I think it's very important for people to pay, because when they pay for a work, they're giving the respect, they'll put it in their specific spaces. So I think that's the best response to an artwork. I mean, conversations are also important, and they are. I think your exhibition, which talks about these tales that you have tried to pick up and symbolize them through their visual narrative here, I think it will spark a lot of conversation. And I think that is one of the points that we should be looking forward to, for people to come back and share their stories about these things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Ranjan. It was a pleasure.
for spending so much time, and it's been an enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
I hope we can continue to do this kind of series where we discuss with others, or we can do it ourselves.
I think it's important that artists and the lay public, they enter into some kind of dialogue,
Right.
because there is a huge gap between the art community and the general public. I mean, if we can do something which can even to a small iota bridge that gap, I think we would be.
I mean, even if the creators become consumers as well.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, a lot of artists also do not see other people's art.
Yeah.
They are also stuck in.
Well, and they're also not talking to each other.
That's also true.
And also, you see, because we've been talking about it, that's why always we've had a poetry session within my shows.
Right.
So creative people, they're also not talking to each other. So everybody is living in their own silos.
Silos. Well, I hope that we'll be able to break the silos, and people will come out and enjoy the rain and enjoy the sun together.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.